You think that Jesus went to go fishing and he only caught a fish this big, but then when he came back, the fish was this big. Isn't that what you're trying to say?
And then the fish got bigger and bigger and bigger until it was too low for the fishes.
When they were all full, he said to his disciples,
"Gather the pieces left over. Let us not waste a bit."
So they gathered them all and filled 12 baskets with the pieces left over from the 5 barley loaves which the people had eaten. Seeing this miracle that Jesus had performed, the people there said, "Surely this is the prophet who was to come into the world." Jesus knew that they were about to come and seize him in order to make him king by force, so he went off again to the hills by himself.
And no, that's not...
We mythologize our historical figures.
Yeah, but like if I was to give you any kind of evidence, would that even change your mind? I don't think it would. I can read to you a letter from Pontius Pilate to Tiberius Caesar addressing these very supernatural things that took place that you're saying were mythologized throughout time.
It seems to me that if the Jewish theory be true, these conclusions are correct, for they are in accord with this man's life, as is known and testified by both friends and foes. For the elements were no more in his hands than the clay in the hands of the potter. He could convert water into wine. First miracle. He could change death into life. Lazarus.
It's still not proof that it was written by Pontius Pilate. It's just proof that there is a record of the letter in the Vatican. And that's it. It's not very strong evidence.
For all intents and purposes, bro, you don't even exist.
Not according to the system. In fact, according to the system, you've never existed.
How reliable is the system?
A, it's completely reliable.
Yes, but I used to exist. I do exist. I'm standing in this room, aren't I?
And?
That's literally the same line of logic that you're doing with this stuff here, especially if it's been vindicated after 100 years.
If he were telling the truth, he wouldn't have told us.
Unless, of course, he knew you wouldn't believe the truth, even if he told us.
Fivefold ministries, bro. Why you want to talk, man? I don't want to talk with you. You go run along.
97% didn't make it. They showed me his harvest for 15 minutes span of time.
You go do your ministry somewhere else. You said that we preach doctrines of devils, bro. Why would you want to talk with me?
I have a 5-point message to the church. I had to share with you my testimony so that you would understand my authority to deliver this tough message to the church. Let me tell you about my commission. He gave me a limited commission. You know what commission he gave the church. He sent the church in the world to preach the gospel. He wasn't going to bring me back to preach the gospel to the world. In order to do that, he would have to take the commission away from the church and give it to me. He wasn't about to do that. He had already given it to the church. He was going to give me a limited commission. He sent me back in the world, but not to preach the gospel to the world.
So you can continue to throw stones at me? No. And if not, why would I want to talk with you? Stargate Fund.
What's up?
How you doing?
You know, overworked, underpaid.
Yeah. Is Jesus your Lord and Savior?
Nah. Doubt he ever really existed.
Doubt he ever existed?
People get mythologized over time. Look at Abraham Lincoln. He was a recent guy. We know most of his life, and even he's got some mythology going on.
And so, as Abraham Lincoln sat in Ford's Theater that night, John Wilkes Booth entered, drew his gun, and... Well, that's it. Have a nice summer, everyone.
Was President Lincoln okay?
He was fine. Go home, Ralph.
What do you mean mythology?
19th century author Edwin Sherman called them the engineer corps of hell. In this modern copy of his book, we see the assassination of Abraham Lincoln on the front cover because it was claimed by 19th century Catholic priest Father Charles Chiniquy that the Jesuits were responsible for the killing of Lincoln. Chiniquy details this in his own book titled 50 Years in the Church of Rome. Lincoln himself had said, "It is not against the Americans of the South alone I am fighting. It is more against the Pope of Rome, his perfidious Jesuits, and their blind and bloodthirsty slaves that we have to defend ourselves."
Well, when a person becomes historically significant, often there are added attributes that weren't original to the story. I have no doubt Jesus was in the same vein. Bad times.
Are you trying to say, like, George Washington didn't actually chop down that apple tree or cherry tree?
Ralph, I'm sorry. Leave me alone. I'm here to play George Washington. Ralph?
I thought that Civil War would never end. Now to soothe my head with an evening at Ford's Theater. Oh no! John Wilkes Booth!
Hasta la vista, AB.
Come on, boy! Finish him off!
You're next. Just A, Arthur. Unhand me, Yankee. Would you put a price on the air we breathe or the providence that sustains us? But couldn't we just give in to the British? Never!
boy is magnificent. He makes me want to learn more about our founding fathers.
To the library!
Yeah!
Actually, I think that one was a story.
Yeah, but I mean, it's along the same vein, right?
Correct.
You think that Jesus went to go fishing and he only caught a fish this big, but then when he came back, the fish was this big. Isn't that what you're trying to say?
And then the fish got bigger and bigger and bigger until it was too low for the fishes.
The time for the Passover festival was near. Jesus looked around and saw that a large crowd was coming to him.
Where can we buy enough food to feed all these people?
He said this to test Philip. Actually, he already knew what he would do.
For everyone to have even a little, it would take more than 200 silver coins to buy enough bread.
Another one of his disciples, Andrew, who was Simon Peter's brother, said,
There is a boy here who has 5 loaves of barley bread and 2 fish. They will certainly not be enough for all these people.
Make the people sit down.
There was a lot of grass there, so all the people sat down. There were about 5,000 men. Jesus took the bread, gave thanks to God, and distributed to the people who were sitting there. And they all had as much as they wanted. When they were all full, he said to his disciples,
Gather the pieces left over. Let us not waste a bit.
So they gathered them all and filled 12 baskets with the pieces left over from the 5 barley loaves which the people had eaten. Seeing this miracle that Jesus had performed, the people there said, Surely this is the prophet who was to come into the world. Jesus knew that they were about to come and seize him in order to make him king by force, so he went off again to the hills by himself.
Yeah, no, that's not...
We mythologize our historical figures.
No, man, that's not how it went down.
We mythologize his more. Also, I have no doubt in another 100,000 years, Jesus will be just as mythological as Hercules, or Perseus, or Ra.
Hey, are you washing the dishes right now or something?
Washing my hands.
Lies. Oh, lies!
You got a lot of clinking background noise.
Well, when a guy's got to be responsible for a kid, he's got to do multiple things at the same time.
Yeah, maybe you should just focus on those things.
Well,
why'd you want to talk?
Well, I don't agree with half the stuff you stand for, so
okay.
I'm curious about a dialogue.
All right, well, as long as you're not a pathological human, I mean, you didn't seem that bad so far, but it's typically everyone always have their claws retracted.
Well, you know my stance. I think Jesus and the Bible are mythologized than anything, so...
Yeah, but like if I was to give you any kind of evidence, would that even change your mind? I don't think it would.
Considering human history kind of negates any pseudo-evidence you could give me right now, it would have to be pretty strong evidence.
I can read to you a letter from Pontius Pilate to Tiberius Caesar addressing these very supernatural things that took place that you're saying were mythologized throughout time. Pilate's report to Tiberius Caesar, Emperor of Rome. Noble sovereign greeting. The events of the last few days in my province have been such of character that I will give the details in full as they occurred, as I should not be surprised if in the course of time they may change the destiny of our nation. For it seems of late that all the gods have ceased to be propitious. I asked him if he had been questioned by the priest. He said he had. They wanted him to say it was an earthquake and that they were asleep, and offered him money to say that the disciples came and stole Jesus. But he saw no disciples. He did not know that the body was gone until he was told. In other words, this guard, he didn't even know the body was missing. He just passed out from that vertigo, saw this crazy sight of dead people in their grave clothes and singing and this majestic music, and just gets dizzy and passes out. He said that some of them thought that Jesus was no man, that he was not a human being, that he was not the son of Mary, that he was not the same that was said to be born of a virgin in Bethlehem, that the same person had been on the earth before with Abraham and Lot, and at many times and places. Yes, absolutely, because Jesus was in the Old Testament. He wrestled with Jacob, he visited Abraham, he saved Lot from Sodom and Gomorrah. It seems to me that if the Jewish theory be true, these conclusions are correct, for they are in accord with this man's life, as is known and testified by both friends and foes. For the elements were no more in his hands than the clay in the hands of the potter. He could convert water into wine. First miracle, he could change death into life, Lazarus, disease into health, the woman that bled, and the lepers, the blind, the deaf, the lame. He could calm the seas, still the storms, call up fish with the silver coin in its mouth. All
all of these miracles are things that Pilate is reporting to Tiberius Caesar. So if Pilate is reporting these miracles to Tiberius Caesar, do you think he just bought it willy-nilly, or do you think that he was really giving a true and accurate report as he was saying? Because if you can't even take Pilate's words to Tiberius Caesar, I mean, how can you really even expect to believe in the words of Jesus? That's what Jesus was saying to the Jews. Moses wrote about me, and if you believed in Moses, you would believe me because he wrote about me. And here we have Pontius Pilate writing about Jesus, and today all these children keep telling me, oh, there's no evidence, there's no proof. Okay, children, y'all keep thinking that.
But if Pontius Pilate in Jesus's time, that's not even a follower of Jesus, he's the governor of Judea. If he is corroborating with these things and saying that thousands of others, friends and foes, all agree with the supernatural things that he's done, in fact, that's the reason why the Jewish leaders want to unalive him in the first place, well, then I would say that that is some pretty solid corroborating evidence that this fish was actually this big from the beginning.
Now, I say, if he could do all these things which he did, and many more, as the Jews all testify, and it was doing these things that created the enmity against him. He was not charged with criminal offenses, nor was he charged with violating any law, nor of wronging any individual in person. And all these facts are known to thousands as well by his foes as by his friends. I am almost ready to say, as did Manlius at the cross, truly this was the Son of God. That is written in Matthew and also in Mark. Now, noble sovereign, this is as near the facts in the case as I can arrive at, and I have taken pains to make the statement very full, so that you may judge of my conduct upon the whole, as I hear that Antipater has said many hard things of me in this matter. With the promise of faithfulness and good wishes to my noble sovereign, I am your most obedient servant, Pontius Pilate. So there you have it. We've got so many dots in Pilate's report to Tiberius Caesar that is literally lining up with all of the gospel accounts, even the smallest little details like pulling up a silver coin out of a fish's mouth. All those details are known to Pilate and was known to Tiberius Caesar.
Can you tell me that letters definitely was written by Pontius Pilate's hand?
As far as the record of it, the provenance of this letter, these letters. If you could mute up real quick, I'll explain it to you. Thank you. This is called the Archko volume. The Archko volume is a collection of letters that were translated out of the Vatican Library by a German individual and then sent to America to this individual that published this book. Now, in this Archko volume is the letter of Pilate, Pontius Pilate, to Tiberius Caesar. 100 years ago, this book got sued for forgery by the Mormon Church, and the Mormon Church won because the German guy that sent all this information provided a false name. Just like people have TikTok names. So I typically ask, which I haven't asked you yet, my name is Daniel, what's yours? You can tell me later. I don't want you to tell me now, but that's typically why I ask people for their first name. I want to at least know who I'm actually talking to. But the same thing happened to this guy. He gave the German's name, but the German's name wasn't real. It didn't check out. So everything that he did was completely poo-pooed on. But 100 years later, I think in 2012 or 2017, there was a linguist that was sent in by the Vatican to go through all of these random letters that were archived throughout history. And guess what? One of the letters that was found in here was found and corroborated. So this book was vindicated after 100 years because the Mormon Church wanted to discredit it, even though their whole religion is a fucking worthless religion created by Joseph Smith, who was a womanizer.
Well, you two boys can just fuck right off.
Ma'am?
You heard me. Take that Book of Mormon and shove it so far up your righteous asses that you choke. So, soliciting pig fuckers.
Joseph Smith forged the book. Somebody else had taken a book to the printer to get printed. It was a Baptist who got mad at his church, and he wrote a story. It was a novel, actually. Well, Joseph Smith apparently got that draft copy, the actual photocopies of the pages that he took to the printer and said, this is what I want printed. It's supposed to be the most perfect book on earth.
Well, it's an interesting story, but it's still not proof that it was written by Pontius Pilate. It's just proof that there is a record of the letter in the Vatican. And that's it. It's not very strong evidence.
Yeah, I know. And 100 years from now, no one's going to even acknowledge your existence.
You never know.
You don't exist anymore.
Excuse me?
You're no longer in the system.
Well, just put me back in the system.
I can't put you back in the system.
Why?
Because you don't exist. I can't put someone who doesn't exist in the system.
But I used to be in the system.
Maybe I'll get lucky. Maybe
No,
I'll...
for all intents and purposes, bro, you don't even exist.
Not according to the system. In fact, according to the system, you've never existed.
How reliable is the system?
A, it's completely reliable.
Yes, but I used to exist. I do exist. I'm standing in this room, aren't I?
And?
So how do I get back in the system?
You need a card.
Right. So can I please get a new card?
No.
Why?
Because you're not in the system.
For all I know, you could be a deep fake AI. You're not real. Can you provide evidence that you're actually a real human?
Sorry, there's just no delicate way to say this, so I'm just gonna rip the Band-Aid right off. You're a robot. A robot. More specifically, you're a companion robot.
A companion robot?
Yeah, it's like I hate the word bot, because you do so much more than that, but you're an emotional support robot. That
You're joking, right? This is just a sick.
Iris, what's the weather?
It's currently 72 degrees with an 83% chance of rain in the evening.
That's literally the same line of logic that you're doing with this stuff here, especially if it's been vindicated after 100 years.
It might have been vindicated that the letter exists, but there's no proof that it was written by Pontius Pilate. You haven't shown me evidence.
Bro, listen, your Facebook won't mean shit even 10 years after your death. But when
Did
it's
he just freeze?
a letter, shut up for a second. You are insignificant. But Pontius Pilate was the governor of Judea. If you know anything about Tiberius Caesar, he was the fucking emperor. So when it's archived, guess what? When you invalidate it in 2025, it doesn't fucking mean shit to me. Have a nice fucking day. Go take care of your kid. Why the fuck are you here? If you're going to sit there and invalidate evidence after I give it to you, then don't fucking come up here. Resetting the live.
If he were telling the truth, he wouldn't have told us.
Unless, of course, he knew you wouldn't believe the truth, even if he told it to you.